Here on the driver's side, right behind the valves and the front seat, are a group of equipment that I tried to replicate as close as possible to the original in the photographs. If you look at the original photographs, and we only have one actually that shows this type of setup, what I believe would have been metal cylinders to hold the fire extinguishers. Obviously in 1938 they didn't have plastic or anything, and they probably wouldn't have used that anyway. So I had these two metal cylinders made. I bought the steel. I have a friend that has equipment to roll it. He rolled it, welded the seam on the back, and then I painted them. I gave him the dimensions and such that I needed. In the original photo you can see there is some kind of base at the bottom and some kind of black strip across the top. I'm assuming a rubber strip, or perhaps that's what I put on there. Then if you look very closely at the actual photograph, the make of the fire extinguishers, there was a HydroGuard fire extinguisher here, and there was a Fomine over there. So I was able to find a correct HydroGuard fire extinguisher for here. This is a Fomine one, as was on there originally, but it's not quite the right era. It's about 10 years too old. It has this extra panel on the top here on the nameplate. I'm still searching for the correct one to be from the late 1930s. In the center between them, there was a Y valve, is what it's called. It's a gate valve like this, so there's a gate that goes up and down that closes and opens to allow water to flow. They originally would have had an opening in the front and then splitter in the back here to two different valves, a Y valve, creating a Y. Well, I'm not able to find one of those. I'm still searching, very difficult to find. In the meantime, I just put a single gate valve on there just to fill the space in the meantime. Also in the back here is an axe. There was an axe there originally, and the brackets for the axe were painted red. I painted them silver. If you look in the original photos, they were either silver or chrome. So in the meantime, I'll have them just painted silver as I have here. And then the other item there is actually two of them, are coal shovels on either side of the rear wheel well. There were two shovels there originally when the truck was new. There were two shovels there when we got it in 2015, although the two shovels that were there when we got the engine, they were too small. I found these two shovels, and there's quite a story to that. I found two shovels at a flea market. They had very long handles on them. So what I did is I had to cut the handles shorter. I took the D handle, the red part on the end there, the D handle from one of those two shovels. I took one of the D handles from one of the other shovels that was on the engine when we got it, had to carve in the wood, strip everything of all the paint and all the rust on there, repaint them, restain the wood, put it all back together. I used the original chrome clips that were actually on the side of the truck back farther to hold a pike pole. That's not where the pike pole belongs, so I took that off, and then I put these two clips back on in the original holes where they originally were. There were two other sets of holes that were holding on different clips for the two shorter shovels, or smaller shovels that were on there when we got the engine. So now it is back to how it would have been originally. On the driver's side running board near the back, we have two 5-gallon hand pump fire extinguishers. Now, they're not the same brand. They should be the same make. And actually, I don't know what the original ones were. It's very difficult to tell in the photographs, the make of them. I'm still trying to do some research on that. But in light of that, there were two there, and I believe they had this kind of bracket on there. Not this kind here, this is a different one. This was the one that was given to us, and we just are using it for now until I find a second one like this. But I think this was modified slightly. There is a bracket on the bottom, and it goes up the back, and then this in the front here, you would open this lever here, open this gate, if you will, to take the fire extinguisher out. With all this extra hose on there, that's very difficult to do, so I believe they just removed this front bracket and had a strap of some kind and just tied a quick knot on it. If you look in the photographs, it appears to be like that. So I may be doing that sort of thing. Now, originally it would have had maybe 3 feet of hose on each fire extinguisher. The fire department added more hose on there, and each of these actually has 50 feet of additional hose from the original. And temporarily I just have them stuck together here with these plastic zip ties. They didn't have those back then, of course, in '38, but that's just temporary. So what I've done is I've tried to position them exactly as they were on the engine. This one almost on the tailboard. This one should actually be shifted over just a little bit more to the right. That will allow more space in here to put another connector. I do have the mount for it, a threaded mount and the connector itself to put in there, but it doesn't quite fit at this point with the two fire extinguishers being too far apart. So what I did is when I put the hoses on, I looked at the photograph and I tried to recreate as close as I possibly could to the looping that was in the original photograph. How many loops here, how many loops here, how many loops on the bottom, that sort of thing, so that it actually even looks just like in the photograph. To the left of them you see the second shovel, coal shovel. There's two of them, one on either side of the rear wheel well. I talked about those in another segment. This other fire extinguisher here, this is a CO2 fire extinguisher. I believe the extinguisher itself to be exactly what was on the engine originally. The hose might be slightly different over the years. That would have been changed in 80 some years, of course. The bracket might not be exactly the same kind of bracket. It's very hard to tell in the photographs, but this bracket is certainly of that vintage period. And what makes this even a more perfect fire extinguisher is kind of the story about it. I found it on Craigslist. It was owned and being sold by a fireman in Menominee Falls, and I picked it up from him, and when I looked at it, if you look, there's these numbers on the top here, manufacturer, serial numbers and such, and a date. These kinds of tanks like this, CO2 and oxygen tanks and such, they'll stamp a manufacturer date on the tank. One thing you need to keep in mind is that this engine was delivered to Greendale on September 1st, 1938. September 1st. The date stamp on here is 8/38, August 38. This actually could even be the actual one that was on the engine originally. It could have been manufactured in August, and certainly by September it could have been on its way to Greendale. I don't know, kind of cutting it close a little bit there, but August 38 couldn't be any more accurate in the dating of this particular piece of equipment.